I'm calling to order the meeting of the Board of Governors at El Camino College. The first order of business is the roll call.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Present. Here.
Here. I'm going to ask the Chancellor to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Superintendent, is my microphone on? Superintendent President Fallow, thank you very much for hosting us, and please feel free to speak.
Well, thank you. We want to welcome you all, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Chancellor, to El Camino College. We're pleased and proud to have you today. I won't take much time, but in front of you, you have a folder, and the exam will be given when you leave. If you can get your way around, we're particularly pleased to have you for lunch and a little reception this evening. And as you know, tomorrow we'll have a tour of our El Camino College Compton Center. And we look forward to greeting you. And I hope that as you get out amongst the campus citizens today that you're able to ask some questions of students, because they are our pride and joy. We want to thank you for all you do for our system and for El Camino in particular. Some of you have commented on the weather. And I did order that it look a little neater today and that there are a few puddles to prove that you can walk on water. Enjoy your stay. And this is the inaugural meeting of this, so you will set the standard. Good luck and thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll look forward to our 2 days here. Our next order of business is the President's report. I'm not sure. Is my microphone on? Yes? Okay. I have 3 things I wanted to share. One was we did get a letter from Assembly Member Jose Solario asking us about ways that we are taking to drive down the cost of instructional materials for students. So I wanted to let the board know that, and the Chancellor has written a letter in response. And I don't know, did you send it out to all board members?
I'm unfamiliar with
I don't
what
think-
happened in my office.
So that might be a good thought. I'll put that on our list of things to do. I did speak with the Board of Education President Ted Mitchell this past Monday, a week ago, and he shared a few thoughts. He said his board was thrilled to meet with us. He also shared that their staff has completely changed since that joint meeting. He hired a man named Nick Schweizer from the Department of Finance and has 2 new staff working with him. He and I talked about ways that our 2 boards could work together, and we came up with a framework. One of them was to plan on a yearly joint meeting in the month of July, so that's something we can all put on our calendars. He said their board meets every 6 weeks for about 2 days, mostly in Sacramento. So he felt that if we had small groups meeting, it would be better for us to be meeting in between their meetings. So just to set that as a framework, I guess their schedule's a little bit more irregular than ours, so that's something we'd have to work on. And we came up with, I'm sorry, he also mentioned that 4 of their 11 board members are not confirmed. So they are also a little bit up in the air, and they will know within 4 months how that all ends up. But a lot of their active board members are the ones that are not confirmed. So that's something that we'll also keep an eye on. We came up with 3 areas that we thought we could work on jointly. The first one is to do dual enrollment. So we decided that we would form a subcommittee to talk about dual enrollment and funding of that. The second thing is, to discuss adult education. That's something they're very interested in, and they know that they're interested in moving adult education from their system to our system. A lot of people have concerns about that, and we thought it would be a good idea to start analyzing the subject and learning more about it, and then talking about future ways that that might be delivered. And then the third was for basic skills, though he was hesitant to say that he would like to form a task force on this at this time. He wanted to see what happens with their board and their confirmations, but that's certainly a third priority, so I wanted to report back on that. Okay, that's what I thought. And then the last thing I wanted to report on a personal note, I did get to go to the country of Turkey in the past few weeks with my husband, and I've been talking to some of our board members. Briefly, they value education highly, and they do a common assessment in 8th grade and 12th grade, and they do a placement based on that. So I've come from a country that has that in motion for many years, so I'll be happy to share that with anybody. And that's the end of my report. Chancellor Scott.
Well, it's great to be here. I've been on the El Camino campus many times. I can't even recall the first time I ever visited here, but I'm sure I've been here at least 10 times. And this is one of the really great community colleges, I think, in the state of California. I remember the days of Sue Marcy when he was the president here, and others who served ably here. And Tom Fallow and I go back a long way. We recall, I recall when he was at Glendale and then came on over here and of course has done a fabulous job in leading El Camino College. I do have a lot to report. It so happens that the 2 months in between the meetings have been extremely busy months for California community colleges. We had some very noteworthy legislation passed and signed into law. And first of that was Senate Bill 1440. I had talked to the board about this. 1440 is historic in the sense of that it sets the table for transfer. I think I've explained the bill to you, so I won't go into great detail, but it simply says that every community college will have an associate degree for transfer of no more than 60 units, and that its general education will coincide with the general education required at California State University. That there will also be 18 units of a major, whether it's a major field such as political science or a broader area of emphasis like social science. That when an individual then transfers to any CSU, they will have immediate junior standing, and that CSU will require no more than 60 additional units. Now, we believe that that will result in probably at least 45 to 50,000 community college students being able to be educated at the same cost that they are this year, and about 15,000 more CSU students. So it's historic. It went through after some amendments and work, and we had a historic signing at Los Angeles Mission College, which is in the district of Alex Padilla, Senator Alex Padilla, who is the author of the bill. And there was a very large student audience, and I can tell you the students are terribly excited about this particular bill. Chancellor Charlie Reed was there. We each spoke and others spoke, and our own board member, Bobby McDonald, attended the event. And so it was really a great event. Governor Schwarzenegger understood the magnitude of the bill and spoke very strongly in favor of it, and of course was enthusiastic. So anyway, that's 1440, and I'm going to talk a little bit later about another extremely important bill, which is Senate Bill 1143, which will have to do with the formation of a task force that will look at student success. And as I said, that's an item on our agenda, so I will go into greater detail. One of the things that's happened in our community colleges that I think is just a wonderful event is the fact that we more or less took the lead in the giving of associate degrees to Japanese Americans who were interned in World War II and were unable to complete their associate degree. And so we've had these events held at a variety of colleges. Recently, for instance, at the Compton Center, which our board will see next week. Tomorrow is what I meant to say. And so that was one of the places. There were, I believe, 70 who received their degree at that time. These are people that are, of course, very emotional about this particular matter, and we are glad to be able to celebrate the degree that was denied them through no fault of their own. So that has been happening throughout the community colleges. Going on down the line, the community colleges were the recipient, the chancellor's office, of the Green Award. And Fred Harris and Eric Skinner are to be particularly complimented in their pursuit of green California community college campuses. A lot of our newer buildings have been built with that in mind. I was on the campus of Butte College last week, and that college may be the leader in the entire nation. In May, they will become completely independent in terms of electricity. You go over the campus, you see a lot of the solar panels over their parking lots. They've built their buildings so that they are carefully conserving energy, but they will be actually returning electricity to the grid in May, and it will be completely self-sustaining. So that's something that we are very proud of. Then going on, one of the things that perhaps some of you read about in the Los Angeles Times and others, and this is what we're going to be addressing, is the fact that it was pointed out that even though we are wonderful in terms of access, we're not always great in terms of success, in terms of completion. Now, there are a lot of reasons for that. I was thinking the other day, you know, if you had, say, a public health clinic, it took all comers, and you had another health office that took only those who were in good health, you might imagine that the public health clinic would have a few more failures, or the mortality rate would be a little higher. Well, of course, that's what we do. We take everyone. We take the person who maybe is a valedictorian, but we also take the one who graduated with a 2.0 average from high school. So we're working with the most vulnerable students, but we can do a better job, and I'll discuss that when we get to the student success. But some of you may have read, and particularly read the synopsis of this particular study that came out from Sacramento State called Divided We Fail, and it says improving completion and closing racial gaps in California's community colleges. We've been very busy with veterans activities, and we're going to later today see a veterans video. I was pleasantly surprised 2 or 3 weeks ago when I got a call from my good friend Jackie Spear, who served with me in the state Senate but is now in the Congress. And she just called out of the blue and said, I've just visited the Veterans Center at the City College of San Francisco, and I'm so impressed. She said, that is a wonderful operation. And part of that has to do with the fact that they were selected as a recipients of pilot training, which will take place in February. There are 3 colleges that are going to be involved in receiving $75,000 grants from the Zellerbach Family Foundation to aid them in their veterans, and that's City College of San Francisco, College of San Mateo, and De Anza College. And I also was very impressed when I was at Butte College with their Veterans Center. I went in it, and there you saw a lot of mostly young men, but some young women who were there, and they were studying together, and it was clear that that was they have a counselor that is specifically assigned to assist veterans, and so I think that movement is really catching on in California community colleges. I was, can't I see, it's October 4th, 5th, something like that. I was invited to a national appearance on 2 TV shows on the same day. One was Fox Business News and the other was CNN. And they were discussing the whole issue of community colleges, particularly California community colleges, and the fact that they are so impacted. And I was talking about how that we were doing the very best we could, but yes, we did have to turn away a lot of students because of a lack of state funding. I also mentioned, of course, to the board last time that I had been invited by the Chinese government to come to China and to discuss with them the concept of community colleges, but particularly the model of California community colleges. And that was just a fascinating trip. My wife and I were on a 3-week trip to China back in 1991 with a group of community college presidents. And to see the change in Shanghai is startling. Suddenly you're in the midst of Shanghai, say 20 years ago, and I'd even been there earlier than that on another trip. And you know, it was overwhelmingly bicycles, very few cars. I would say not many people were dressed in a Western style. It was a different city. Today, you would almost think you were in New York City. Skyscrapers are all around. You go down Nanjing Road, the neon signs, a 6-story mall. Consumerism is alive and well in China. They are really capitalism. They are emulating the West in terms of their economic model, not as much in terms of their political model. But really what was interesting was I got to meet with a lot of education officials, the head of the Shanghai Education Commission, the president of a Shanghai Normal University, went down to Ningbo Technical College. China is divided rather sharply, and an exam determines it in your senior year, and those who score high are permitted to go to the university, and the others go to trade and technical colleges, which are about 1,200 in China. And as I talked to them about the fact that in the United States, we didn't say to somebody, well, look, if you don't do well on this exam, you can never get in a university. I said, our community colleges, yes, we have the technical part, but I said, we also have the transfer part. And I know one official was really intrigued by that when he said, you know, people deserve a second chance. And he recognized that this rather rigid system in China had some flaws in it. And so they were very interested in the American model of the community college. Another thing I ran into there, and I'm going to point this out to some of our colleges, they have wonderful relationships between their trade and technical colleges and industry. I walked into a room at Ningbo Technical College. Ningbo happens to be one of the great port cities in China. And I walked in this room, and there were probably 15 to 20 of these digital manufacturing machines that I think they said down to 0.002 of a millimeter in terms of accuracy. And all of that had been given by an industry. All of that technical equipment, because of course the graduates go to work for the industry. But there's such a tie between the industries and trade and technical college in which they really call upon industry to make a real contribution. And I think we could learn from that and being more aggressive in terms of going to the business world and saying, you know, we're turning out the personnel that work in your plants and work in your, say, auto servicing places and all the rest, and we need your help, particularly in this particular time. I also began to explore the possibility of individuals from the trade and technical colleges beginning to take distance ed in some of our colleges and coming over to the community college and then transferring to CSU or UC or whatever. They're very interested in that. even though certainly the income per capita in China is much less than ours, nevertheless, there's a considerable amount of wealth there, and they recognize the value of the United States degree, and so they're very interested in that. In fact, I was recently talking to the chancellor of the Foothill De Anza College, and she said in the two colleges there, they had over 500 students from China. And of course, they're all paying out-of-state tuition. They're all paying the full fare. And it's quite interesting about the hunger. By the way, China recently passed up Japan in terms of its GDP, and it's now the second largest in the world behind us. Of course, they have 1 billion people producing that, but nevertheless, the 10% economic growth that's been characteristic of China, I think, for the past decade is really remarkable. So I had a good trip and enjoyed it very much. I think some of you have followed with interest, certainly our good friends Henry Ramos and Peter McDougall have followed with interest. The kind of little, you know, the fact that we got caught in a political tug of war there toward the end of the session, in which, well, if you don't confirm our people, we're not going to confirm your people. And so, through no fault of their own, in fact, both Peter and Henry went through the Rules Committee, were viewed very favorably by all participants, but hostage is kind of a method in the Capitol. I can cite some instances in my career there. So we're working on that. Henry has been asked, because Henry's, actually his re-nomination comes up in November. So they've asked Henry to resign and then to be reappointed. So it seems to me, I mean, I've been very frustrated over this matter, and certainly, and then Peter's nomination, not renomination, they're, as you know, when somebody is nominated by the governor to be on the Board of Governors, they are given a year in which their nomination is to be confirmed by the Senate. But it has to be confirmed by a 2/3 vote, not by just a majority. Well, a 2/3 vote of course, means that both parties have to okay this. And that's where the rub comes in sometimes. So we're still working on that. We're very hopeful that with this reappointment, and then when the legislature comes back in December the 6th, when all of the new senators and assembly members are, they're inaugurated into office. I might add that we're going to have a discussion tomorrow, I believe. We're going to have a political analyst here that'll talk about the election, and of course there's all of the implications of that are kind of running around in all of our minds, and I think we'll find out some very interesting things about it. As all of you know, there was a summit in the White House summit that was presided over by Jill Biden, the vice president's wife, and also a community college teacher. And President Obama spoke to the summit. There's something I'm going to hand out to the group. It's called Discussing Accreditation. I'm going to hand it out to the Board of Governors. I was unaware that the Research and Planning Group, which is a group of institutional researchers in the community college, Bob Breener is the president of the group, but it has a lot of the various individuals who are involved in research. For the last year, they have been conducting research on accreditation. And as you read the report, you will find that their findings are quite similar to the findings that the Accreditation Task Force has come up with, indicating some of the strengths of accreditation, but also some of the ways in which the ACC-JC could be improved. And it's, as I said, the parallels between the findings of the accreditation group and this discussing accreditation document are quite interesting, and I thought you might enjoy reading it. And after my speech, I'll see to it that, and Jerry hands it out to you, and you can read it at your leisure. I compliment Patrick Perry, our Vice Chancellor, who was appointed to a national committee that's dealing with the whole issue of student success and completion. Only 2 from California were appointed, Linda Thor, the Chancellor of the Foothill De Anza District, and Patrick Perry. I think it's made up of about 13 members, so.
14.
14, is that it? So that's a pretty impressive thing that Patrick, and we compliment him for that. I also just happened to notice that this new, the Supreme Court Justice, the one who heads up the Supreme Court, is, her name is, last name is Tana Cantil, if I pronounce that correctly. And she is an alumnus of Sacramento City College. So, and I happen to know that Joyce Kennard, who is also on the Supreme Court, is an alumnus of Pasadena City College. In fact, she spoke once at our graduation and spoke very warmly of what Pasadena City College had meant in her career. She came to the United States and was someone from Indonesia. She was someone who she and her mother had been interned in a Japanese concentration camp in Indonesia during World War II. She came over here. She was obviously very short of money, went to Pasadena City College, then went on to USC, then her law school at USC, and is now on the Supreme Court. And so it's just amazing how many individuals who are alumnus of our community colleges rise in importance. I was sitting on the plane next to a newly elected assembly member. His name is Doss Williams. He's from Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
And Doss told me, and Peter will be probably knows this story, but Doss said he was homeless, and he came as a student to Santa Barbara City College, and then went on to Berkeley, and now is a freshman member of the assembly. So those are the success stories that keep us going. Well, I've gone on and on about some details here, but before we move along, if somebody has a question or anything about some of the things that I mentioned, I'll be glad to expand on it, or maybe you thought I've already expanded too much. But anyway, yes.
Dr. Scott, one thing would be helpful, I don't know if others received it, but that synopsis you referred to, the Cal State study that was highlighted in the LA Times. I know I did not have a copy of that. I would very much appreciate getting a copy of that, so.
Well, Al.
I mean, it doesn't have to get it today.
Oh,
mean,
I
if you get-
understand,
yeah,
but
I got it.
will you make a note of that in, Jerry? I don't think, I have a copy, but I don't think we have enough copies for all of you.
Yeah.
But we'll make, and Jerry, I'll make a note of it. I'll be sure to remind
Yeah.
Faye to send all of you a copy of this study called Divided We Fail. And I'll send that out. Yes.
I just wanted to have a question that, in the wake of the election, have you had any contact with the new administration at all?
I might have mentioned this. I had a contact with future Governor Brown about a month and a half ago, and he called me and actually wanted some information on community colleges. Some of you may know that he was at one time, at his first political job was as a trustee at the Los Angeles Community College District. And so we had a very interesting conversation, and I then sent him a position paper in which I talked about the history of community colleges and what we need and so forth. And I am now working on getting contact with him before the budget is proposed in January. In fact, I had a conversation this morning with Chancellor Reed and suggested that perhaps maybe Chancellor Reed and President Udolph and I could all meet with him, because our meeting last year with Governor Schwarzenegger, if you recall, I thought was quite effective. In fact, after that meeting, Governor Schwarzenegger said he would veto a budget that did not contain his proposals for higher education. So I'll do all I can to make contact. I have met Governor Brown before, and you know, I wouldn't claim I'm an intimate friend or anything. I knew Governor Schwarzenegger better. I will tell you that I made the same offer to Whitman's campaign to send that position paper, and I talked with Richard Costigan, whom I know well, who was the deputy campaign manager, and he said that she was going to get together with me after the election. I don't suppose that meeting is going to occur now. But anyway, but I will indicate to you that we will, and I've also called both the Speaker's office and the President Pro Tem's office to have meetings prior to the budget. Now, certainly Eric Skinner is going to be talking to you about the budget, and we all know that the budget which finally passed was based on some precarious assumptions. And so the possibility of a mid-year correction is always looming over us. But we will just indicate to you that we will be busy. I know Scott Lay back there with California Community Colleges is also a very fierce advocate for us, and we have some other people working in the Capitol, and we fortunately have some real friends in the legislature. So we will do what we can to make contacts with the administration, and although there was not much of a change as far as the Senate and the Assembly was concerned, certainly not in the makeup. There was an addition of one Democrat in the Assembly, that I believe made it 52. And the composition of the Senate remains 25-15. There was one rather closely contested race, but as you know, most of the districts are fairly settled in terms of whether they're going to be Democrat or Republican. Yes.
And my hope is too also in Congress, a number of California legislators will become chairman of major committees, including Jerry Lewis, I think, should be chairman of Appropriations Committee, and I hope that we'll talk about that.
I'm not sure what Buck McKeown will be, but he's always been a fairly knowledgeable person on higher education. We'll lose George Miller, which, of course, was a very powerful Californian in terms. He headed up the Labor and Education Committee. Other questions?
Just have a comment, Chancellor.
Yes.
I would be remiss if I didn't publicly acknowledge with gratitude your great efforts on my behalf in this unusual circumstance that we find ourselves in relative to my nomination and by extension Peter's. Key members of your senior staff, Marlene over there, Eric, have been spectacular in their support as well. Marlene Garcia, Eric Skinner. And I want to thank the members of the board who have all, in ways large and small, been very generous in their advice, their counsel, and their support. I'm hoping for the best.
Okay.
Really appreciate your efforts.
Well, Andrew, we'd like to tell you it's because we like you personally, but we just have to tell you that it's because you make such a great contribution to the board, and so does Peter. We would regret very much the loss of these two members. So, as I said, it's just, I sometimes use the kind of harsh analogy of, I've heard it before, it said, you know, when the elephants wrestle in the pond, the frogs get hurt.
I'm not sure I like that.
I don't know who, all I can say is that this political wrestling that's going on has some, you know, some unfortunate byproducts, and it's just kind of, that's the part of politics that we don't like, and I never did like, is to suddenly see things happen that don't have to do with the principle of the thing, they have to do with the byproducts. And so you have, you know, maybe somebody voting against something because they don't like that person, and you want to say, well, you know, really what we ought to be thinking about is this a good policy or a bad policy? Right. And just get the personalities out of it, but I don't think you can ever get the personalities out of it. The only thing that gives me hope once in a while is that quote by Winston Churchill. You know, one time he said, democracy is the worst form of government in the world. It just happens to be better than any other form. So it's pretty messy, and sometimes it's not real, you know, not real attractive. And we are subject, you know, the rules simply say that the Board of Governors is appointed by the governor and must be confirmed by a 2/3 vote of the Senate, and must be confirmed within a year. That's the rules of the game, and we have to live with the rules of the game. And sometimes people think I'm appointed by the governor. I always point out to them, no, I'm appointed by the Board of Governors, who in turn are appointed by the governor. But I'm glad that I don't have to go through a process of getting a 2/3 vote, and I'm sorry that you did. All right, is there any other questions?
Well, thank you for your report, and I am going to mention a technical thing. The audience is having a hard time hearing us. Our microphones are not picking up. And if you may have noticed, as people are speaking, you do need to bring it very close. And you're also not supposed to, as you turn your head away, we lose you. Yeah. So try to speak into your microphone for the people in the room and the people who are listening to us remotely. We are going to move on to item 1.1, a resolution to Victoria L. Bradshaw, Agency Secretary for California Labor and Workforce Development Agency. Will you please come forward? Do we have a second microphone? So much for joining us today at our board meeting. For all the years I've been on the board, you've been a force. Please come into the middle for our beautiful photo. So thank you very much for all you've done and for being here for all the years. I really appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
I think I'd like to say something because Vicki was someone that I always could call on in the governor's office, and she's been a great friend, not just a friend in terms of access and advice, but she's also been a friend in directing dollars over to our cause. So it's been not only rhetoric, but it's been actual funds, and we appreciate that a great deal. And of course, her understanding of career technical education is really outstanding. She's a great fan of career technical education in the California community colleges, and so this is just a small token to tell you how much we appreciate what you've done.
Well, thank you very much. I truly appreciate this. I believe, as does the governor, that the community college system is an equal partner to the CSU and UC system in the higher education scheme of California. And in fact, it is the linchpin to a successful economy. And that's why I'm terribly supportive. I truly believe in it. And even though we only have 6 weeks to go, we still have a couple things in the works here, as you well know. So we are not going to stop. And I do hope to play a part in the community college someplace in the future. In the last 5 years, well over $1 billion in money has come through the state, and we've made sure that at least every project had some element involving the community college system in it. So I just want to let those frogs over there know that there were a number of us who have been caught in that mud wrestling match by elephants, and I'm here to tell you there is a great life after the mud wrestling.
Thanks for the reassurance,
Thank
Secretary.
you very much. Oh, here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to item 2.1, approval of the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes of September 13, 14.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any corrections or additions? Member Perez?
I would like to ask that it be added to the minutes, my request that the budget be brought forward in July timeframe to initiate discussion.
Okay.
Since we're always approving it in September, I would like to have that discussion initiated in July.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Could I just add a note here? One of the most important initiatives that passed in the November election was the initiative that said that a budget will now be passed by a majority vote, and that if it is not passed, that members of the legislature would begin to lose their pay. And so I really believe, and you know, I'm speaking from rather bitter experience of having long battles over budgets and spending all night in the Capitol and so forth. I really believe this is going to make the whole budget process at least speed it up. I won't guarantee it. It doesn't suggest there's going to be any more money, but by a majority vote, it is suggested that the budget will pass on time, or that there will be a personal penalty to the legislature if it fails to get it out on time. So I think our discussion in July will be greatly aided by the reality of the fact that that initiative passed. So I think it will be much easier to fulfill Member Paris's comment there in the future because of this initiative.
Member Haley, did you want to speak on this?
I just said it was saying here, here.
Oh, here. Thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Okay. Moving on to item 3.1, approval of contracts and grants. Executive Vice Chancellor Bruckman.
Thank you. You have before you the contracts and grants for action. And as the board knows, we try very hard to get everything to the board well in advance, but there are times when contracts need to be presented to you at the meeting. We have a few here to present, so for the record, I want the board to recognize that there were some additional items that were not in the printed agenda materials, and Vice Chancellor Jose Millán will explain a little bit about those.
Thank you. Madam President, members of the board, Chancellor Scott, the item that Executive Vice Chancellor Bruckman is referring to is the set of grants that you have before you dealing with the Career Technical Education Pathways Initiative, also known as SB 70, AB 1133 monies that are issued as grants to various consortia of community colleges or individual colleges. This item is actually, it's a little complicated in that we have to get final approval from the Department of Finance for these dollars, but yet, because this item is before you now, I need to come before you to ask for your approval of these amounts, because if we wait till January, it'll be too late to get the monies out to the colleges. So it's one of those situations where I have to ask you for your approval in anticipation that the Department of Finance will be able to allow us the authority to issue out these dollars in December, as opposed to waiting till after January to do so. So if you have any specific questions regarding these grants, I will be happy to address them. Otherwise, I just ask for your approval of these amounts as indicated in these sheets before you.
Thank you. Member Haley and Member McDonald.
Jose, this is really kind of complicated. Is there some reason why this has to be this way? Every time this comes up, the board generally feels, hello. I get the feeling, you're behind me, Jose, it's you I'm talking to. Oh, never mind. It just seems that every time these things come up, they are, oh, thank you, Jose.
Not a problem.
That we're uncomfortable as a board, and you're uncomfortable in defining why this is such a problem. Is there any way we can fix it?
Yes, the easy way would have been to get a budget in on time. And as we all know, the last round of the budget negotiations that dragged on until last month really put everything on delay. So until there was a budget in place, we could not get these numbers finalized. We still haven't gotten them finalized because the Department of Finance has to approve them. But yet, I have to come before you in November to ask for your approval of something that isn't yet final from the Department of Finance perspective, because I could bring this up in January, but by then half of the year is over and the colleges need to have the money in order to spend it on these particular projects. So it's an awkward situation, I understand, for everybody, but it's one of those necessary evils, and hopefully now going forward we would have a state budget in place, as we should have this year in July, so that we don't have these delays. And I could have brought this to you at your previous board meeting.
Member
Well, it'll be
McDonald?
somebody else, but.
Member McDonald?
I'll move the approval of the contracts and grants.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstentions. Thank you. I'm sorry. Member Davis-Lyman.
Thank you. I was going to say while Vice Chancellor Mion was still at the podium up there, I wanted to congratulate him on the outstanding piece that he, with two other authors, created on the op-ed section of the Sacramento Bee on CTE. It was absolutely outstanding. And so thank you so much for not only being a leader in the field, but for being able to articulate it so well to so many. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3.2, Board of Governors meeting dates for 2012.
Yes, this item was discussed at the prior meeting, and so now we're ready for action on the calendar of meeting dates for 2012.
Move the calendar.
Second.
Any discussion? Member Baum?
Just the question, because it's going to be a subsequent item for discussion. This calendar indicates all meetings in Sacramento except for one. And is that part of the motion, or is it just the dates of the motion?
Well, that is, the date is, the primary purpose is to set the dates.
Right.
It does identify the locations. Certainly, that can be changed if the board so desires.
That's fine.
Any other questions? Member Perez?
It's a follow-up to Member Baca's question. Would it be appropriate for us at this time, or would it be later that we would say that the meeting dates would be accepted, but that we would like to have two of the meetings held on college campuses?
What's your suggestion?
The board could incorporate that into the motion now, or if later on the board decides that it wants to do that, then we could just reprint it at the next meeting. And because I think at this point, you don't know which of these dates might be at a different location. So I would recommend just leave it as this item as is, and then when you have your subsequent conversation, discussion, we'll amend it as needed.
As I'm thinking back when we had our two meetings off-site in 1 year, we just changed the location just well in advance. So it wasn't a problem, I don't think. Member Baum?
So just for clarification, when will be the appropriate agenda item for us to discuss?
Next.
And the next one is just setting the dates the next agenda item is about a specific meeting, not a policy direction that we want to have about possibly requesting or planning for meetings at multiple locations.
Well, as you know, I sent to the Board of Governors a statement concerning what the cost would be if we hold another off-site meeting and some other considerations, both the value and perhaps some of the disadvantages. Perhaps Steve could tell us if we properly agendize this so we could discuss it at this meeting, or if we need to wait till January to make a decision as to maybe these sites or these dates. I don't know the legal ramifications, but I do know that Member Baum brought this up last time, that he thought it would be well to have 2 off-site meetings in 2011. And I was asked to do some research on that, and I did the research on it. You received the cost. I believe you estimated between $5,000 and $10,000 additional cost. We pointed out a little bit about in terms of staff relocation and things of that nature, and the advantage, of course, of going out into the public at different places. So I would just ask your opinion here, Steve, as to whether we could discuss it at this point, whether we could discuss it when we discuss the sites for the 2011, because I am going to go over some sites for the November meeting in 2011, some suggestions, and once again, I expect board action on that.
Yeah. Item 3.2 are the meeting dates for 2012. So that's over a year in advance. So I would recommend for 2012 we simply adopt these meeting dates as presented. And then when next item 3.3 is the discussion of the campus site for the November 2011 meeting. I presume the board would like to have, at least some members of the board would like to discuss having an additional meeting off-site during 2011. And I think that would be the appropriate time for discussion. But since this item was specifically agendized for November 2011, we would come back in January to take formal action if it's the board's desire to have a meeting, for example, in May 2011 at some location. We would come back in January so the board could take action on that. But the discussion, I think, would probably occur on the next item. So I would recommend we simply adopt this 2012 schedule now and then get on to the next discussion about the locations.
Okay. Member Baum?
Could I request the maker of the motion then actually amend the motion to exclude the specific locations from the dates so that we will have additional flexibility, because in the selection of a venue for the 2012 and not automatically commit to a Sacramento for all the meetings save one.
So agreed. I think I made the motion.
Okay. Any other discussion? No? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstentions? Member Baum?
And just, I do want to make the one additional point, too, that I found it was very helpful for the board, not only to, when we meet outside of Sacramento, but when we met inside of Sacramento, I thought it was a good experience when we had that opportunity to meet inside the Capitol building as opposed to at the system office as well, too. And I don't know how to make that a traditional or regular schedule type
Well,
program,
part of
too. it
is based on the legislative
Yes.
calendar, so that
Subject to
leaves us the
availability.
month of September and November usually. And if you're going to travel, it's usually November, so it's probably a good September tradition.
Right, and we don't have to decide now.
Right,
I just wanted to make
it
that.
needs to be in here, yeah. but People liked it. Member Haley?
I'm still concerned about whether or not we are going to talk about it now or at the next item, about the cost and to the state for us to make these trips to other campuses. I know very much how much it's appreciated, but I'm not convinced that that the state ought to be paying for that extra cost. And if it's $5,000 or $10,000, that's $5,000 or $10,000 more that we probably need to be thinking about in terms of our internal staffing and so on. So I'd like to talk about that some more. So I don't
Okay.
know if that is in this agenda item or the next.
I think the next item.
Thank you.
So we'll just move on. Item 3.3, selection of the campus site for the November 2011 Board of Governors meeting.
Get a vote on 3.2.
Oh.
I thought thought I did, but that's okay.
Yes.
Oh, we did.
Did we vote?
Yes.
Yes, we did vote.
And I agreed to.
Who,
change.
point of,
I agree.
Shall we,
Madam
As you said, all
Chair?
those in favor
Yes.
say
I'm,
aye.
I'm, the only thing, I'm not sure I heard a second, to
Oh, I
tell you the
seconded
truth.
it.
Did Lance? Okay,
Yes.
okay, great.
Okay, thank
Okay, item 3.3. Chancellor Scott.
We are meeting now in Southern California, so it was determined, or at least suggested to me, that our November meeting in 2011 would be in Northern California. Obviously, there are 40 or 50 possible sites, and I chose not to research all of them. I have come up with 3 suggestions, and I will try to explain what the advantages and disadvantages of each site. I have checked with each site. The colleges are certainly positive about that. You know, we asked the question, you know, we didn't exactly want to choose a place where, you know, there was kind of undecided about leadership and things of that nature. So I have talked with the specific persons, the CEOs at each site. And the 3 sites I'm going to recommend are College of the Redwoods, Butte College, and De Anza College. And let me tell you about each one of them. And we have to keep in mind the flights and things of that nature. I mentioned that I visited Butte College. It's an extremely well-run college. It's about 80 miles due north of Sacramento. And we would spend the night in Chico because I think it's about 10 miles. Butte College is both near Oroville and Chico, and it's 1,000 acres of land that they bought out there. And they have a bus service. So what we would do, it's a college of about 22,000. It's very attractive. You know, it's kind of a bucolic location, I would describe it. And have about 22,000 students. And we would fly into Sacramento and then probably take a van to Chico and have the van there for your visit to that college. So that's Butte College. College of the Redwoods is located outside of Eureka. It's, of course, also a very lovely location. It is near the Redwoods, as you know. I had a conversation with Jeff Marcy, and he was enthusiastic about our coming. There are flights to Eureka from Sacramento, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. Daily flights. It's not a hub like some other places, but it is a place we can get to. And so that's another option. De Anza College is one of the largest and best-known colleges it's in the Silicon Valley. And you would fly to San Jose, and you would in turn there are a lot of motels and hotels in that area, so you could stay rather close to De Anza College. De Anza College, the president there is Brian Murphy. The chancellor is Linda Thor. And probably many of you have heard of De Anza College. They have a lot of unique programs. I've been on that. By the way, I've been on all these campuses. Now, I will say that when I was on the College of the Redwoods, it was many, many years ago, but I remember it as a very beautiful campus. So all of these campuses would have their advantages of location, so I simply mention all 3 of these colleges as possibilities. Are there other possibilities? Of course there are. We went to the City College of San Francisco not long ago. Some of the other Northern California colleges we've gone to before, but I did the research that was necessary, at least to give you a recommendation of these three. Now, I am not unwilling to go back to the drawing board and research any other college that you want me to research, but I have other things to do in my work as chancellor, so I thought maybe having researched these three, that they each have a little different flavor about them, and I thought, the ANZA's in an urban area in the sense that it's in the Silicon Valley. Both College of the Redwoods and Butte College are more rural in nature. Maybe rural is the wrong term, but not certainly as urban. City College of San Francisco was about as urban as you can get. So anyway, and of course we're here in a clearly urban area. So there we are, those three, and I leave it.
Thank you. Vice President Himmelstein?
Yes. First of all, Chancellor, thank you for the research and advance work on this. I think I would simply express, and I think all three would be very good, I would express the desire to go to a rural setting, seeing as our past two trips have been to more urban settings. I think at the rural colleges have some unique problems, benefits, challenges that we should avail ourselves of, and think would be a good experience for the board. I've certainly been both to Butte and College of the Redwoods. Both really have, as you say, some unique programming, which is great. So I would throw out a desire to go to one of the rural colleges. If I had my druthers, I would personally recommend College of the Redwoods because it is even more rural than what Butte College is, but I'm certainly open to either.
And I thought we'd choose our college and then talk about a second meeting after this vote. Any other discussion about colleges? Member Haley?
I still would like to know about how much it costs us to do this as a regular process twice a year. I think it's highly wonderful to do. Is it the best way for us to be spending the money to make it 2 times a year?
Well, I'm referring to Steve Bruckman's handout that it is an additional cost of $5,000 to $10,000 a meeting away.
Where's the handout?
I'm sorry.
He emailed it to us.
This was an attachment, an email, I believe, when the chancellor sent his update to responses from our last meeting. There were a few subjects in there. Compton.
Some of us do not have that.
Okay. Well, it has been emailed to you, but that is the number.
Okay.
So between $5,000 and $10,000 per meeting is a reasonable estimate.
Would it be possible, maybe a strategy to go about doing this is that we'll make have the discussion and take the action on whether we're going to go to a location outside of Sacramento for the November 2011 meeting.
That's what I was intending.
And then we can then have a secondary motion as to which if that policy decision passes, then we would then have a discussion about
Right.
which of the locations.
That's what I intended, if that's okay. So any other discussion about campuses for November of 2011? Member McDougall.
Yeah, I have no specific preference, but I would like to suggest that we might want to consider, instead of the November meeting, the September meeting from a weather standpoint. I don't know if it starts snowing up there in November, but I think we need to be concerned about accessibility. So I would just put that in as a caution. If the decision is to go to College of the Redwoods, I would suggest we do that in September rather than November.
That's actually a very good thought. I believe the plane from Sacramento to Eureka is a prop. So,
Is a
right,
what?
a prop plane, not a jet engine, I think. So
Well,
you're right, weather is an
I'm just
important
saying-
factor.
Well, my car's a V8 engine. So I'll look forward to the 9-hour
We'll
drive.
go anywhere.
Yeah.
Member Baum?
Well, I'm going to put in a plug for Butte College as a alternative location. One is that in my limited experience, we haven't been to the Central Valley to visit a campus. It's a sizable, from what Chancellor Scott explains, it's a sizable institution that has a nearby Cal State that would be interesting to see the role it plays within the community. They have 22,000 students is important, and I don't think we'd have the same access issues in November, but from what I heard that from Chancellor Scott's description, it would be a different campus environment than I've personally been exposed to. Although College of the Redwoods is similar, I feel that when we visited Lake Tahoe College, we also visited a fairly remote, pretty small institution, and so it wouldn't be as much of a contrast as, say, the Butte College might be. And that's only expressing my personal initial impressions.
Oh, those are very good points. Thank you. Member Thomas?
Yes, being sensitive to what you were talking about as far as how the board addresses and the timeframes of where would the board meet in November versus two meetings. I think something else to consider, and being sensitive to Member Haley's comment about finances, in the case of Butte College, it's not that far away from Sacramento, and so I would assume that it might be on the less expensive side of an out of Sacramento type meeting. So it might be something that for the board to consider, that if the board wanted to try and do two meetings away from the regular chancellor's office, that if one of them were in close enough proximity that it would help with especially the additional staff issues getting to the meetings away from the chancellor's office, that it might be something that maybe the board could do both Butte College and Eureka, because Butte College isn't that far away. So I'm just struggling a bit with trying to take the issues separately when maybe they really are related.
Other comments from board members?
Well, I have a comment. I really think this is part of a bigger issue. What my concern is if we pass this along with a second visit, that it impacts board members from attending important conferences during the course of the year, because we do have a budget for the Board of Governors, and I really think this should be considered within that budget. And I know that the Foundation Board at our last meeting in San Francisco, and with our concern about the budget issues, we've decided to no longer meet in Los Angeles and San Francisco. We're going to have all our meetings at the office in Sacramento for consideration of the budget. And I'd like this board to think about the overall cost of where we're going with this program and what we hope to accomplish from it. And I'm not sure we can afford to carry that staff to these outlying areas and the like, and the expense. If we had an additional $20,000 for board members to attend conferences with, it may be money better spent, personally.
Any other thoughts or comments? Member Baum?
Well, since we are entering in the dialogue about
Yes.
the costs, I would just, first off, I want to thank Steve for doing the research and checking on it. I have a strong philosophical belief that we can be more effective as a Board of Governors by going out and seeing firsthand what's happening on the campuses and interacting with the campuses. We've often talked about how there's sometimes a visibility challenge with the Board of Governors, both lack of communication between the campuses to the board and the board to the campuses, and some confusion about what is the role of the Board of Governors within the system that has local control throughout the system. And so I was just recently at a conference with Member Baca and Member McDonald, and I ran into a number of college presidents and some who have had experience in the Chancellor's office, and they said, one of the most important things you can do is get outside of the Chancellor's office and talk to the people on the front lines as to what's happening and the challenges they're facing. So when I saw the costs, the $5,000 to $10,000, actually seemed quite affordable to me. We haven't been shared as a Board of Governors, the actual budget for the operation of the Board of Governors that I can recall. So I don't know specifically how that impacts. If we have a $25,000 budget, adding $10,000 seems like a lot. If we have a $250,000 budget, it seems like it might be more manageable. That's a decision that would be helpful. That data might be helpful to have in putting that $10,000 in context. But I do think that it would serve a variety of purposes to help both the districts and the Board of Governors to schedule an additional meeting. I actually find those meetings where we have gone on-site visits like we have today to be actually much more meaningful and substantive than sometimes our regularly scheduled meetings. And so I'm passionate about the desire to give us, to take our board to local districts. And those college presidents that said that, I asked also about the impact of hosting a Board of Governors visits, and they said, they told me to a person, they would welcome it and it'd be enthusiastically, enthusiastic hosts, and would not consider it either a management or a financial burden to the districts.
Okay, thank you, thank you. And just as a clarification, I have dated October 7th from Chancellor Scott an email that was called Items of Importance. And just to refresh your memory, in there is a manufacturing program trends briefing, more information that we asked for after our meeting. Peter Landsberg, the special trustee, sent us a Compton update in there, a multi-page one, and then there was the attachment for the Board of Governors meeting outside of Sacramento. So it was back October 7th that it came.
Yeah, I
McDougall.
think we're dealing with two items simultaneously. I'd like to suggest that we settle a location
Yes.
of the meeting for November and then move to the second item that appears to be, otherwise we're confusing ourselves with the discussion. At least I am.
I agree. So is the board ready to vote among those three choices? Do I hear any other discussion? I think I'll just have people raise their hand. So for the first one, Butte College, which board members are in favor of that? Please raise your hands. Member Baum, Baca, Izumi, McDougall, and Perez. College of the Redwoods, please raise your hand. Member Thomas, Member Ramos, Vice President Himmelstein, myself, Malumed, Barbara Davis-Lyman, Member Haley, Member Price, and Member McDonald. And for De Anza College, anybody raise your hand? Member Reed, thank you. So it looks like the College of Redwoods is the one that has the most favor. And I would like to move on to the discussion of two meetings off-site in a year. Any other comments? Member Perez.
And I'm going to kind of mix a couple things because it's already been mixed, but I do also believe that it's important that the Board of Governors is visible, and I think equally important is not just our campus visits, but also the conferences as well. And I would not want to jeopardize us attending conferences, because it always seems a challenge whenever we want to attend a conference. And it's sad to me that it is, because we get these invitations, we have people that are very excited about us going, and then it's always a challenge of who can go and whether or not we can go because of budget issues. I think it's also important to be on the campuses because, again, I hear the same comments that we need to be in the trenches, and in order to really understand what's going on, we need to be at the campuses. So I don't know if it's, just manipulating the budget to allow us the opportunity to do both of these things, that there's flexibility within the budget. It does get back to the fact of not having all the information because we really don't know what the numbers are. So when we're talking about doing both of these activities, we don't know the true impact of it. But I think equally important to be on the campus is also equally important for us to be able to attend the conferences. And, one of the things I would ask staff to do is to provide us with a list, and this is kind of going off, but of the conferences that come up every year. So maybe in our January meeting, we can look at those and then say, these are the conferences that, we think are important that we attend. In the same way we alternate between the campuses, maybe we do an alternation between the conferences as well. So.
Chancellor Scott.
What we do is we have a total agency budget. That includes the entirety of the staff, which is about 140, I believe. We are awfully cautious about adding personnel because some years ago we received a very substantial cut and reduced our staff. And this year, what was the cut that Governor Schwarzenegger?
18? Was it 18%?
Go ahead.
There was a 5% reduction that we took as an agency, and that was on top of the reductions in our budget that were achieved because of the furloughs. That was a primary mechanism that the state used to achieve savings in our budget was by furloughing employees. But on top of that, we were required to achieve another 5% reduction.
So what happens is that we simply, we have a total agency budget. And so whatever expenditures, when you add to your expenditures, we make sure that we lessen expenditures elsewhere. That's the way it works. I mean, I'm not trying to, you all, it's not that if you feel that's important, fine, we will find space in our budget to do what you want to do. You ask what it costs, and we told you what it would cost. And you are obviously you're the Board of Governors, so you make decisions concerning the way in which you would like for the budget to be spent, and we'll make accommodations accordingly. Now, there is, of course, a governor's office which tells us even more what we're to do. And when they tell us to cut 5%, we cut 5%. We normally are pretty conservative in that we operate normally without fulfilling every staff position because we know the vagaries of the state budget. And so when, what we didn't do when the 5% cut came down, we cut the budget, but we fortunately didn't have to lay off anybody. And the only reason we didn't is because we had vacancies that we didn't fill. And so that's, and there's a variety of things that happen during the year that, but we have always operated in the black. And, we simply, you asked what it cost, and we told you what it would cost. And we told you some of the advantages and disadvantages. So whatever this board decides is certainly we'll make allowances in our budget one way or the other.
Member Perez?
I just have a question of clarification, Chancellor. The total agency budget, does that include the funding that we receive from the foundation as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And my understanding is the foundation, I asked, about 10% of that money is used for Board of Governors. That comes over to the Chancellor's
Incidentally,
office.
for instance, there are certain expenses that we can't use state, such as these refreshments that we're eating, that we cannot use state money for that. And so that the fact that the foundation gives us money gives us some flexibility in our budget. Not only does it help our overall budget, it's not a large amount that they give us, but it is helpful in terms of expenditures. Just as I recall when I was president of Wilson College, our local foundation helped us out with things that we did not feel or could not legally use state money for.
Okay, well, any more discussion about this? I think it might be appropriate to take a vote if that's okay with members. Do I hear a motion for?
All I would simply recommend is if we can take it up at this time. I don't know if it's possible, but I would just, because I appreciate the information the Chancellor provided, so it seems if we felt it was a priority to make it, the funding would be there, and it wouldn't necessarily mean that we cut a file clerk's hours back the next week because as a result of the fact that we did this. So if we are allowed to, if we are able to make a policy decision, I would move that we designate a second meeting next year, subject to a recommendation from the Chancellor's office, to be held outside of Sacramento at a local campus district.
Okay. And Michelle, Member Price?
I would actually prefer to talk about it at the next meeting, if that
Okay.
could be agendized.
Put it on the agenda, okay. And Member Reed?
I would too. I would really like to see what that cost is going to be. I would really like to see what we're taking it from, because your numbers don't add up in my mind. If the foundation's giving us $300,000 a year to operate this office, systems office on, and we're taking 10% for the Board of Governors, that's $30,000. So if we increased our cost by $20,000, then that means there's going to be a sizable amount of money coming out of the chancellor's budget that would have otherwise gone to staffing or other issues. I'd really like to see some hard numbers before I voted for a second visit.
Okay. Well then, would I be correct to say I don't see a second for the motion? That looks like I'm correct. And we will bring it up as an item to be discussed with a lot more detail and budget numbers at the next meeting. Okay? Okay. Thank you.
As an agenda item.
As an agenda item.
Okay.
Yes.
It will be an agenda item, and if there's whatever additional information you want, then will you relay to me, and I will be glad to furnish that for, I appreciate very much Vice Chancellor Bruckman's work on this. I asked him to do this, and he did it with a lot of detail, but if there's some other information that you want on it, please let me know, and we'll provide that to you.
Thank you. Member Paris?
May we also have information on the conferences at that same time so we could have that discussion jointly? Because one could potentially impact the ability of the other. And so I think it's important, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to talk into this microphone,
Yes.
but it's
Yes,
kind of
I
in and out.
know.
But I think it's important that we discuss those simultaneously to understand how one might impact the other.
Okay, that sounds good.
One other suggestion,
Yes, Member McDougall.
is we should be clear on the goals that we're attempting to accomplish. There's nothing necessarily magical about conducting our business on a campus that results in any particular outcomes. But if we have outcomes that we desire to accomplish, we should specify what they are, and we should assure that activities take place that will enable those outcomes to be achieved. Otherwise, we're not really accomplishing anything, except we're providing the appearance of accomplishing something without necessarily doing so. So I think we have to be a little more thorough and analytical in what we're trying to achieve.
Thank you. Good thought. I'm sorry. Member Ramos and Member Baum, and then we'll move on.
I think that Peter makes a really good point, and I think looking at it as a two-sided coin, I too would be interested in some analysis of what the value is for the campuses when we come in, and what the disruption factors are, if there are any. What are the costs to the campuses? Maybe not direct dollars, but it may be lost time, it could be lost focus. I just think that if this is going to be something that's mutually beneficial, it can't just be driven by what's good for the Board of Governors, what we need to learn. We need to have some kind of synergy and complementarity in terms of what the campuses are taking from our visits. And I think that goes to the question of value.
Member Baum?
And just my concluding remark would be, let's use this meeting, these next 2 days, as an opportunity to study the impact of the value of getting outside of Sacramento to conduct a meeting. I'm looking forward to, for example, touring the Campus Center, which has been a subject of discussion for this board for a number of years, and I have never had any firsthand ability to actually observe it in action. And so I think we have a tremendous opportunity to see by these next 2 days whether it is a worthwhile investment to go to campuses for these meetings.
And just as an aside, I would like to mention that board members are free to ask to visit other campuses and be given tours and information, which I have done on this campus and Compton Education Center. So you have that ability, and you will be invited to campuses also. So that's an individual thing that you have. Member Paris.
And I wasn't fully aware of that, Debbie, so what I would ask is that maybe in January we can talk about that process as well.
Oh, okay.
Because I think that's also an alternative. I mean, if the cost of hosting a meeting is large, maybe we can coordinate visits to campuses for some of the board members as well. So I think that might be a good alternative.
Good thought.
If I could ask just one question for clarification. Member Perez asked for a list of the conferences, and I think the board knows there are many, many conferences that we hear about. Are you asking for a comprehensive list, or just the conferences that the board frequently attends, like the Community College League event and that
Yeah,
sort of?
it's like the league and the foundation, the ones that are mostly attended and the ones that, you know, are the top of mind on an annualized basis. I know there's a series of conferences, but which are the ones that rise, that annually are the ones that are most looked at to be attended?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We're going to do one more item, and then we will take a break, and they will work on our microphones during that break. Item 3.4, election of board officers. I thought that we would vote by raising our hands. It has to be in a public way that is recorded. So without further ado,
Just have one procedural question.
yes, Member Baum?
I just noticed in the policy that was presented, it says that officers shall be elected and take office as the last order of business. Is there,
When the gavel hits tomorrow, the next president becomes president. I'm a president until the end of tomorrow's meeting.
right, no, I was just saying, is it appropriate for us to take, shall be elected as the last order of business too? Is it appropriate for us to take it now or wait until?
It's really hard.
It's hard to even hear among us.
Okay, okay. That's fine, I just was reading the policy, wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think it makes a difference. Member McDougall?
Yes, I'd like to suggest, we've had some discussion on the CPEC representative. My colleague, Barbara Lyman Davis, would replace myself as the nominee, which I would enthusiastically support.
Executive Vice Chancellor, is that an okay thing to do? Executive Vice Chancellor Bruckman? Are we allowed to accept that change?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We're voting for president. All in favor of President Deborah Malumet, please raise your hands. Member Azumi, Member Malumet, Member Price, and Member Haley. All in favor of Vice President Scott Himmelstein for president, please raise your hands. Member Baca, Member Thomas, Member Ramos, Member Baum, Member Himmelstein, Member Reed, Member Perez, Member McDougall, Member Lyman, Member McDonald. Congratulations, Vice President Himmelstein. He has a lot of good ideas. It's going to be an exciting year, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Vice President Alice Perez, since it is uncontested, I don't think we need to vote.
No, we should.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstentions. Congratulations. CPEC representative, Barbara Davis Lyman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed and abstentions. And CPEC alternate, Jeffrey Baum. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstentions. Congratulations. That order of business is done, and we'll look forward to the new team. I'm sorry?
I have one question.
Sure.
There seemed to be some confusion on this, and I think it's important, at least for one board member. My understanding is in that there's a number of board members that aspire to the presidency of this board, and many of us are here for short periods of time, I not being one. But I just want an understanding or a policy issue. Normally, this is a one-year appointment.
You mean elected for the
For
term of
elected
president?
officials, yes.
Yes.
For both, for
Oh,
the different
yes.
positions?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, you're,
'Cause there was some confusion about that, and I wanted to clarify that these positions, as we vote on them, are basically considered a one-year appointment.
that's right. And I think there's the note that the president can only serve 2 terms. So there's a maximum there, but I guess the others can serve more than that.
Is that right?
You know, if they want to be vice president for 5 years.
Really?
There's no limit. But usually people do move on to other offices, right? Okay, well, let's take a 10-15-minute break, and we'll come back to finish our morning.